To truly understand the tragedy of Karbala, you have to first understand the man at its center. Hussain wasn't just anyone. He was the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatima, the Prophet's daughter. He was the child the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would stop in the middle of the street to chase and play with, running back and forth until he finally caught him, embraced him, and kissed him. This was the child of whom the Prophet declared, "Hussain is from me, and I am from Hussain." This wasn't just the love of a grandfather. This was a statement of spiritual inheritance. The Prophet saw his own mission, his own values, reflected in this child. He and his older brother Hassan were inseparable. They were the Prophet's two sweet basils in this world. He would let them climb on his back while he prayed, and when a companion once remarked, "What a fine mount you have," the Prophet smiled and replied, "And what fine riders they are." He promised them a station that every believer longs for, saying, "Hassan and Hussain are the leaders of the youth in paradise." This promise wasn't conditional. It was a statement of their status with Allah, sealed by the tongue of his messenger. And the Prophet's love for his household was a command for us. He once gathered Hussain, Hassan, Ali, and Fatima under his cloak and recited the verse, "Allah intends only to remove from you the impurity of sin, O people of the Prophet's household, and to purify you with extensive purification." This was Hussain, a man of impeccable lineage, guaranteed paradise, and wrapped in the love of the Prophet himself. He was a man of principle, courage, and deep faith. Life, however, was about to test that faith in a way no one could have imagined. 50 years, that's all it took. 50 years after the Prophet's passing, the moral fabric of the society he built was beginning to tear. The era of the rightly guided caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Hussein's own father Ali, had ended. After years of civil strife and political turmoil, power had been consolidated by Muawiyah, the governor of Syria. Muawiyah had signed a treaty with Hussein's older brother Hassan, promising that leadership would not be passed down as a hereditary monarchy. But that treaty was broken. Before his death, Muawiyah appointed his own son Yazid as his successor, and Yazid was not a man of God. The sources describe him as a tyrant, a man who openly violated the principles of Islam and who wanted to rule not through justice, but through fear. To legitimize his corrupt rule, he needed one thing: the public allegiance, the bay'ah, of the most respected man in the nation, Hussain ibn Ali. An endorsement from the Prophet's grandson would silence all opposition. The order came to the governor of Medina: force Hussain to pledge allegiance. But for Hussain, this was an impossible choice. Pledging allegiance to Yazid meant validating tyranny. It meant stamping the Prophet's legacy on a corrupt regime. It meant telling the world that power was more important than principle. He refused. Knowing his life was in danger, Hussain left his beloved city of Medina and went to Mecca. At the same time, a flood of letters began to arrive from Kufa, a city in modern-day Iraq. Hundreds, then thousands of letters, all carrying the same message: "Come to us, O Hussain. We have no leader. We will support you. We will stand with you against the tyranny of Yazid. 100,000 swords are ready for you." Kufa had been his father's capital. The pleas seemed sincere. Was this Allah opening a door? Hussain, ever cautious, decided to verify their claims. He sent his cousin, Muslim ibn Aqil, a man of great piety and strength, to Kufa with a simple mission: assess the situation. Is their support real? When Muslim arrived, the city erupted. Thousands pledged their allegiance to him on behalf of Hussain. The initial reports were overwhelming. Muslim sent a letter back to Hussain: "The city is with you. They are sincere. Come." But tyranny moves fast. When Yazid heard of the growing support in Kufa, he dispatched a new governor, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, a man known for his absolute ruthlessness. Ibn Ziyad entered Kufa and immediately began a campaign of terror. Using threats, bribery, and public executions, he systematically dismantled the support for Hussein. The 100,000 swordsmen vanished. The enthusiastic crowds fell silent. The very people who had pledged their lives to Hussein abandoned his cousin, Muslim. Hunted and alone, Muslim was eventually captured and brutally executed. Just before his death, he managed to send one last desperate message. "Do not come to Kufa. They have betrayed us." But that message never reached Hussein. Trusting the initial reports, Hussein had already begun his journey from Mecca, taking his entire family with him, the women, the children, including his 6-month-old infant son, Ali Asghar. As he prepared to leave, the senior companions of the Prophet, men of wisdom and experience, came to him, begging him not to go. Abdullah ibn Abbas, his own cousin, pleaded with him, his voice trembling. "The people of Kufa are treacherous. They betrayed your father and your brother. I fear you will be killed among your women and your children." But Hussein was resolute. He saw the letters, he had the initial report from Muslim, and he believed this was his duty. He wasn't seeking power for himself. He was answering a call to stand against corruption. He told them, "I would rather be killed outside of Mecca than to be the cause of its sanctity being violated." He knew this path could lead to bloodshed, and he wanted to protect the holy city at all costs. He set out with a small caravan of around 72 loyal companions and his family, marching toward a hope that had already turned to dust. The journey was long and grueling. Along the way, the horrifying news finally reached him. Muslim ibn Aqil was dead. Kufa had fallen. The promises were empty. There was no army waiting for him. There was only a trap. The world had just collapsed on him. He gathered his small group of followers and told them the truth. "The people of Kufa have deserted us. Whoever wants to leave may do so now. There is no blame on you." His core companions and his family remained. The sons of the martyred Muslim Ibn Aqil stood up and said, "We will not leave until we avenge our father, or taste the same death." Their loyalty was a small light in a vast darkness. As they pressed on, they were intercepted. Not by a welcoming party, but by a battalion of Yazid's army led by a commander named Hur ibn Yazid. They blocked Hussein's path, forcing his caravan away from the road and into dry, barren desert land. A land with no water, no shade, no life. A land called Karbala. The soldiers of Hur's army were exhausted and thirsty from the desert heat. In a moment that perfectly captures his character, Hussein ordered his men to give their own limited water supply to the enemy soldiers and even their horses. He gave water to the very men sent to destroy him. But this act of mercy was met with cruelty. The army of Ibn Ziyad grew, swelling to thousands. They completely surrounded Hussein's small camp and, under direct orders, cut off their access to the nearby Euphrates River. For 3 days, under the blistering Iraqi sun, Hussein, his 72 companions, and the women and children of his household were denied a single drop of water. This is the turning point. Trapped, outnumbered, betrayed, and watching his family suffer from thirst. Here, any ordinary man would break, but Hussein's resolve only hardened. On the night before the 10th day of the month of Muharram, the night before the battle, he gathered his companions one last time. He extinguished the lights and said to them again, "The enemy only wants me. Take the hands of my family members and escape in the darkness of the night. I release you from your allegiance." He gave them every chance to save themselves. But one by one, in the darkness, their voices rose in defiance. His brother Abbas declared, "Why should we do this? To live after you? May Allah never show us such a day." Another companion stood and said, "By Allah, if I knew I would be killed, then brought back to life, then burned, and my ashes scattered in the wind, and this was done to me 70 times, I would not leave you until I met my death in your defense." Their loyalty was absolute. Their moment of truth had come, and they chose Allah. Then a flicker of light appeared from the other side. Hur, the commander who had first intercepted Hussein, was seen trembling. His men asked what was wrong. He replied, "I am choosing between heaven and hell. And by Allah, I will choose nothing but heaven, even if I am to be cut to pieces and burnt." He spurred his horse, rode across the battlefield, and threw himself at Hussein's feet, begging for forgiveness. Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet of Mercy, forgave him. Hur turned to face his former army and shouted, "May your mothers weep for you! You invited this righteous man, and when he came, you betrayed him, and now seek to kill him." He then fought and became one of the first to be martyred on the side of truth. The resolution of this story isn't what we expect. There was no last-minute miracle, no parting of the sea. The divine response to this ultimate display of patience and principle was the honor of shahada, of martyrdom. Allah had purchased their souls for paradise. Indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties in exchange for that they will have paradise. On the morning of the 10th of Muharram, known as the Day of Ashura, the battle began. It wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. 72 against an army of thousands. One by one, Hussein's companions fought with legendary courage and fell. Then it was the turn of his family, the household of the Prophet. His 19-year-old son, Ali Akbar, who resembled the Prophet so much, fought like a lion before he was struck down. Hussein rushed to his side, cradling him in his arms as he took his last breath. His nephew, Qasim, the son of Hassan, a young man described as being as beautiful as the moon, was killed. His brothers, Abbas, Abu Bakr, Usman, Jafar, Abdullah, and Muhammad, the sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib, were all slaughtered. 7 sons of the Lion of God gave their lives on that day. The most heart-wrenching moment came when Hussein held his 6-month-old baby, Abdullah, known as Ali Asghar. The infant was crying from thirst. Hussein held him up and pleaded with the enemy army, "You may have a problem with me, but what has this infant done? Give him some water." Instead of mercy, an archer from the enemy camp drew his bow and fired a 3-pronged arrow, piercing the baby's throat and killing him instantly in his father's arms. Hussein caught his own child's blood in his hands, looked to the sky and said, "O Allah, if you are pleased with me in this way, then my deal is cheap. Give us patience upon your decree." Finally, Hussein stood alone. Every male companion, every brother, every nephew, every son was gone. He was wounded, exhausted, and heartbroken, but not broken. The enemy soldiers who saw him in those final moments said they had never seen a man who had lost so much yet stood with such dignity and resolve. He charged one last time. They surrounded him, a pack of wolves on a wounded lion. He was struck with dozens of swords and spears. Thirsty, bleeding, and alone, he fell. A man named Shimr ibn Diljawshan, a name now synonymous with evil, came forward and, in the ultimate act of depravity, beheaded the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. They thought they had won. They thought they had extinguished the light. They were wrong. So, what is the point of this story for you and me today? It's not just a tale of grief to be remembered once a year. It's a blueprint for life. Hussein's stand teaches us that there are some things that are not for sale. Our integrity, our faith, our principles. It teaches us that complaining to Allah in our hardship is an act of worship, but complaining about His decree can break our faith. Hussein never asked, "Why me?" He only asked for the strength to endure what was written. His victory wasn't in surviving the battle. His victory was that 1400 years later, we are still talking about his stand. His enemies are remembered only as villains and footnotes in his heroic story. His message of standing for justice against tyranny has inspired millions, transcending religious and cultural borders. He proved that a person can be killed, but an idea, a principle, can never die. The Quran tells us, "And never think of those who have been killed in the cause of Allah as dead. Rather, they are alive with their Lord, receiving provision." Hussein is alive. His legacy is alive in every person who chooses truth over falsehood, justice over oppression, and principle over profit. Okay, you made it to the end. As promised, here is that hidden detail that is so easy to miss. Most tellings of the story end with the tragedy of Karbala, but the real shockwave came after. The man who ordered this atrocity, the tyrant Yazid, had a son named Muawiyah ibn Yazid. After his father's death, this young man, barely 20 years old, inherited the throne of a massive empire. He had everything: power, wealth, authority. But after just 40 days, he gathered the elders of his family and the leaders of the state. He stood before them and said, "My father was a tyrant who shed the blood of the Prophet's family for this throne. And I curse a throne that sits on the blood of Hussein. This is your government. Give it to whomever you want. I am leaving." He kicked away the rule of 3 continents, disgusted by the crime his own father had committed. He went into his home and died shortly after, choosing to meet Allah with a clean conscience rather than rule a kingdom built on injustice. What does this teach us? It shows that the truth of Hussein's stand was so powerful, so self-evident, that it cracked the very foundation of his oppressor's own house. It proved that even when you feel you have lost everything, Allah can make your message resonate in the most unexpected of places, even in the heart of your enemy's son. Hussein's victory wasn't just in Jannah. It began the moment the son of his killer stood up and declared him the victor. I pray the story of Hussain Ibn Ali gives you strength in your own trials. I pray it gives you the courage to stand for what is right, even when you are standing alone.